Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Quite interesting, the lighting's a little bit dark in at the moment. Ironically, I have got proper lighting and that sort of stuff. However, today I've just not set up. I want to talk about something that's extremely close to my heart and also affects hundreds of thousands of people in the UK alone. It's about domestic violence. And it can be minor, like the odd slap. Whether you deem that minor or not, I don't know. In some respects, it's in the eye of the beholder, but it also is about tolerance and that sort of stuff. Now, domestic violence in law is unacceptable. However, a lot of it goes on every single year. Every single year. The statistics from the Office of National Statistics is absolutely massive. There's a lot of it which are basically repeat visits from police to households where families just tolerate it. I use the word families because one thing that's really important is that there is a generational issue here, because kids see this and they may see it as acceptable that mum and dad argue. I'm assuming mum and dad, mum and boyfriend, whatever it may be, argue, and then they get that acceptance to it. Then it becomes a generational issue, which is a massive problem. There's loads of government reports on it. Just Google it, to be honest. I hate to say Google all the time, but it works. You can just download this stuff. One thing that's really important is that there is actually help out there. However, the help is very difficult to access, which is confusing. And people will tell you help is out there. And I think a lot of it is, to access help, you have to be extremely serious that you're ready to do this and that sort of stuff, or get a good key worker, support worker that's willing to help you. In this instance, in this video, I'm particularly talking about women that suffer from domestic violence. Men also suffer from domestic violence as well. However, the larger scale of abortions is actually women in society in the UK, and I'm pretty much sure it's repetitive throughout the world. Actually, in fact, you could talk about the Middle East, America, Africa, wherever you go, it's women who are the larger proportion of victims. But men, if you're listening, these same applications which I'm going to talk about apply to you. So one thing I can say is that domestic violence is not acceptable, and definitely not acceptable if I was to extend it to around your children to witness it and live within this sort of environment. It has massive detrimental effect on your kids to an extent which is immeasurable, because it has different impacts on all your living children. So one child may go one way, one child may go the other way. It's a bit like living with, I don't know, an alcoholic. One kid may follow that path, one kid may go anti that path because they didn't like what they saw. Drugs, same difference. But the thing is, what you don't know is how it's going to manifest itself in its older years. So you definitely do not want your children, and obviously yourself, to be a victim as well, around domestic violence. But there are remedies out there, and despite what the government say, it is fairly hard to access sometimes. But the first thing that I highly recommend is trying to plan to get out of your situation. And the best people to go to is Women's Aid, if you're a woman obviously, and your local authority, to see what stakeholders are available for you, because they will help. and they're used to it. So plan. Try and remove all the risks in the household. Could be alcohol, could be drugs and that sort of stuff. But do not get involved in any confrontations and that sort of thing. And as you're planning your exit, and you must exit, I assure you, you must exit. You get one life. One life. One life. That's all you have. And you must exit. Utilise your friends and family as best you can, the ones you know and trust. And then start planning your exit, and hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. But the fact is, if you have to leave with just your suitcase, clothes on your back and that sort of stuff, I assure you, you're going to be a far better place. I know over the years, I'm talking about over a decade, that many people have fled to refuge. Like literally gone to temporary housing or women's refuge, and all of them, not one, are in a far better place in life. Some of them remain single because they're basically too scared to move on with a new relationship. Some of them moved on to new relationships and they're in a happy home now. Where there's drugs involved, though, what I will say, it's slightly different based on experiences where I've talked to key workers and stuff like that, because it's a difficult process to get off them, and alcohol and that sort of thing. One thing I will say is that now the police have an obligation to inform social services that this sort of environment is happening. Your children are at risk to be taken away from you because of the toxic environment you're in. So you've got things like non-molestation orders now, fairly straightforward in terms of applying for it. And as long as you give clear and concise evidence, for women, you could apply free of charge, generally speaking. Contacting a local family lawyer, they should be able to help you. And then they should be able to advise you on all these different steps. But the point of making this video, what's so important is that you accept that you're in a vile, toxic relationship and it must change. And your partner's got no reason to change, because you're accepting. All he has to do, based on my experience anyway, is just apologise or blame you. A proper narcissist, gaslighting sort of person. One thing I ask yourself, and this is something I've experienced quite a lot when writing written statements and over the years, is a lot of people end up losing their friendships because their friends listen to you, believe in what you say, and tell you you need to get out, but you don't. And then those friends just drop off one by one, and you end up with nobody but the abuser. It's a common theme. There's so much evidence out there. So much evidence. There is help. There is help. I know it is hard to access sometimes, but one thing I can tell you for sure is that if you're in this situation, the abuser will not stop. There's not a magic wand, because the person's got no reason to. So it's extremely important that you reach out to all these different stakeholders out there, and it's all free of charge. If you put a message on here and just flag it saying hello, I'll follow you and I'll give you some good guidance. That's all you need to do. Just send a message saying hello and I'll reply back to you, follow you, and I'll send you a message. But please rest assured, if you do nothing, nothing will change, and it will only get worse and worse. I assure you. I assure you. God bless.